Wow. Know what this is? Your boiled day, DL47, and me and Pop off, popping off as much rugby league information as possible. Right now, something truly deplorable. Some absolutely repulsive statistics. And so you don't miss any repugnant rugby league information, watching this video all the way through to the end, as per always. So, we're continuing on with the first games ever by every team series. There are currently 17 teams in the competition, and in the past there have been 16 other teams who don't exist anymore. Altogether that's 33 teams. And we're doing it alphabetically, so right now we're up to Canterbury Bulldogs, or Canterbury CBs, or Canterbury Berries as they were called in their early days. So, Canterbury's first ever game was the 1935 Round 1 game, and that was a 20 points to 5 loss to North Sydney at North Sydney Oval. So, get this, that might actually sound disappointing to only get one converted try, like to lose 4 converted tries to 1, remembering tries used to be 3 points at the time. That's why 4 converted tries to 1 is 20 points to 5. That might sound disappointing to lose like that on debut. If Canterbury had known what their other scores in 1935 were going to end up, they would have accepted a 20 points to 5 loss gleefully. Yeah, because it definitely didn't get any better. That wasn't even a distant sign of the horror that lay ahead for them, of the complete and utter misery that awaited them in their first ever season. By the end of the 1935 season, Canterbury had managed to win just 2 games. There were 18 games in the season. They managed 2 wins only, 14 losses, and had 2 byes from the 18 rounds. Only 2 games they won, both against University, and the University, of course, lost every single game in 1935. And I've mentioned many times before, University were a team around at the time who picked up 10 wooden spoons between 1920 and 1937, but 4 consecutive wooden spoons in 1934, this year, 1935, 1936, and also 1937, before dissolving at the end of 1937. So, basically, University was slightly dying out at this point in time. Canterbury could only beat University twice to avoid the spoon. And, despite avoiding the spoon, Canterbury still had worse statistics than University did. So, there's obviously a lot to go for in this one. So, first things first, Canterbury's first ever game, 1935 Round 1, 20 points to 5 loss to North Sydney Oval, played on the 25th of April 1935, refereed by Tommy McMahon Jr., that was the referee, and despite Canterbury's wretchedly atrocious season, the first ever try, the honour will also always go to the player Jack Hartworth. He got their first ever try, and then the other Canterbury player Tom Kerry, he got the conversion, got their only goal. So those two, Hartworth and Kerry, will always have the honour of getting the first try and first goal for them. At least, that's pretty much the only thing they had to cry about in the 1935 season. North, though, a workmanlike display, workmanlike performance, 4 converted tries. So 2 by the player Noel Ferrier, 1 by Johnny Abell, and 1 by Doug Dykes, who was a pretty handy player for them. And 4 goals by North, 3 by Roy Thompson, and the other 1 by Johnny Abell. So Johnny Abell getting a try and a goal, putting a tick in both columns, so to speak, in that one. So, like I said, when the team lost their debut game, I'd like to revisit when they did finally get some wins. So, the only 2 games that Canterbury did win in 1935. In round 8, they beaten University 21-2 at Prattney Park, which is a venue that was used at the time. Probably haven't heard of a lot of the venues, I'm about to say, but Prattney Park was used at the time. And then in round 17, Canterbury beat University by a single point, 16-15 at Marrickville, another venue that was used at that point in time. So, like I said, they had 2 wins, 14 losses, and 2 byes for the season. So, of the 14 losses, we've gone through 1 to North in round 1. And I don't want to go for all of them. I could, but I don't want to go for all of them because they're so horrendous. But what I've decided to do is just pick the four biggest losses Canterbury suffered in 1935. Because two of them happen to be the biggest losses by any team ever. Believe it or not, 1935 round 5, Canterbury had somehow gone down to St George 91-6, believe that or not. St George 91, Canterbury 6, 1935 round 5 at Earl Park. And the very next game, 1935 round 6, Canterbury had gone down to Eastern Suburbs 87-7 at the Sydney Sports Ground. So, the 85-point losing margin to St George and the 80-point losing margin to Eastern Suburbs, those two are the highest losing margins, the 2 highest losing margins by any team ever in the history of the game, like in first grade that is. There's been bigger margins in a couple of international games, but in Australian Rugby League first grade, the 85-point loss to St George, 80-point loss to East, two highest losing margins, not just by Canterbury, by any team ever. And that record has stood the test of time. That was 90 years ago. This was in 1935. 90 years later, the record still stands as being the highest losing margins by any team ever. Not even University, as wretched as they were. University quite often conceded 50, 60, sometimes 70 points, but they never lost by 80 and 85 points. Not even University ever managed that. So, as well as those two horrendous displays, believe it or not, later on in the season, 1935 round 15, for the second time in 1935, Canterbury were annihilated by Eastern Suburbs again. This time, 1935 round 15, the score was Eastern Suburbs 65, Canterbury 10 at Pratton Park. And just to finish off their wretched season of misery, put the final nail in the coffin in the last round, 1935 round 18, Canterbury were annihilated by Western Suburbs 65-11, also at Pratton Park. So there you go. And then in the final wash-up, like I said, the fact that Canterbury did at least beat University twice was the one and only thing they did right in 1935. They still had worse statistics. So what I mean by that is that Canterbury's for and against in 1935, they'd scored only 150 points exactly in attack and conceded an astronomical 660 exactly in defence. For and against minus 510, believe it or not. Even University's for and against, as horrendous as it was better. University's for and against in 1935 was minus 420 points, 94 against points better than Canterbury's. Canterbury had conceded 140 tries exactly from the 16 games, believe it or not, whereas University had conceded 123 tries, which is still horrendous, at 17 tries less than Canterbury. Remembering too, unfortunately, like we always have to remember, tries used to be 3 points at the time, so Canterbury conceded 660 points exactly with 140 tries. If tries were 4 points back then, believe it or not, they would have conceded 800 points exactly. From only 16 games that they played in 1935, they conceded the equivalent of 800 points exactly. And whether you want to believe that or not, that's 50 points per game on average. Imagine that. Imagine watching a team concede 50 points per game every game without fail, just about. Well, the average ended up 50 points, but you get the idea. Aside from the two games they won against University, they were conceding 50 points per game on average in defence. So it's a miracle that they didn't get the wooden spoon. It's an absolute miracle that they even beat the useless team University twice and avoided the wooden spoon that way. But what's even more of a miracle is the turnaround they then produced, which I absolutely can't believe either. So after this, infamous debut debacle by Canterbury in 1935, only 3 years later, it only took them 3 years later to turn it around, and in the 1938 grand final, just 3 years later, Canterbury won their first premiership, beating Eastern Suburbs 19 points to 6 in the 1938 grand final. So that was absolutely phenomenal, considering, that they finished second last and conceded 140 tries from 16 games and conceded an 85-point and 80-point losing margin in their debut year. And obviously, I don't really want to chuck it in because it's so embarrassing, but obviously, as you're probably guessing by now, when they conceded 91 points against St George and 87 points against East, yes, they were 3-point tries. So both those games, they would have conceded well over 100 points. Pretty sure St George put 19 tries on them, so with 4-point tries, they would have lost to St George 110 points to 8, not 91-6. And against East, I'm pretty sure they conceded, I think it was 17 tries, so that would have been 104 points to 8. So they actually would have conceded over 100 points twice with 4-point tries. But yeah, still conceded 91 points and 87 points against St George and against East, even with 3-point tries. So there you go. Wow. So, next up, we're doing it in alphabetical order. So next up, we've obviously got Cronulla Sharks' first ever game, which was obviously 1967 round 1, their first year in the comp. And yes, Cronulla did get the wooden spoon in their first year, 1967. Yeah, and they found it going difficult, as a lot of teams do in their first year, but nothing like Canterbury's debut debacle. So if you're still watching all the way through to the end, as per requested, thank you so much that you didn't miss any essential rugby league information. And thank you, as per always, most of all, for that head-splitting, brain-crushing, pulverising, brutal support. Good boy all day, 47, Turtle